film, and it turns out that this is, one example of a way in which perhaps some things in Aberdeen or in these other cities haven't changed, or elements that have remained the same. We do these portraits pretty simply. I'd block out an hour or so on the schedule, and we'd just set up our crew on a street corner or something. And I just watch people as they'd pass by and would say to, someone, oh, let's grab, that person, or let's grab her. And they'd bring them over. And if they were into it, we'd say, okay, stand on that mark. And then I'd just tell them to look straight into the camera and do whatever they wanted. And I found that the lack of specific direction actually, seemed to bring out a whole range of expressions. Some people were, very, focused. Some people, were laughing. Other people seemed kind of nervous, as, what should I do? And that was nice to see the difference in how people responded. Beyond my general love for portraiture and the fact that my cinematographer, Wyatt Troll, is a really amazing portrait photographer, I really wanted to convey the idea that these are the people that you pass by on the street every day. You pass them by, without a second thought. You don't know if they're having, the most amazing moment, something wonderful has happened to them. They may have suffered a crushing loss, or they may be the most talented person that you could ever meet. Something about this, the not knowing as it relates to Kurt's story, the idea that just a year before he was the biggest name in music, he was walking down the streets of these places and people would pass him by without giving him a second thought. That's powerful to me. And also, this is a film about landscapes, and I believe that landscapes are not only natural or architectural, but they're also human. And it was clear as we moved from city to city that the human face of the place has changed. Of course, some of the locations, like the library, the bars and the clubs, the houses and the high school, are very specific. The mill is probably the most direct. It's the Mayer Brothers mill, and the place that Kurt is talking about when he talks about going to work with his dad and listening to Queen in the van. There was something really great about shooting at places like the mill, because we'd already built our audio track. We knew what Kurt was going to say. We knew what music we were going to use. We knew there was going to be Queen playing during this scene, for example. And then we'd go out and we'd be filming in these places. And when you go to the mill and you have these stories of him jumping, on stacks of wood, or sitting in the office, watching the guys working on the floor below, it was great to be there and filming and trying to convey what it felt like to be standing there. And we'd go in with a pretty specific shot list. This, forklift shot, for example, was planned out way in advance. I'd been to the mill twice before and had shot DV footage and stills, and so there were some things that I knew that I wanted to have, but my producer Shirley Moyers and Wyatt and the rest of my crew would also allow ourselves more time to discover things when we were there. We later would call this structured guerrilla filmmaking, because it was both very planned out on the one hand, and also, we were able to stay pretty loose. There's a shot coming up that's a good example of, having that ability to grab something when you discover it. This house, we didn't see it on our first scouts of the mill, and it's actually on the mill grounds, but kind of around the corner. And we discovered it, and also this kind of rusting piece of wood, and it said something, I think, about the change that had was coming in the timber industry, and also in terms of what Kurt was talking about. And the other opposite end of the spectrum, you have something that's not related to Kurt at all. It's the new Seattle Public Library. There was a moment in the audio when Kurt was talking about what the world was going to be like 10 years later, and I started to think about what had been added to Seattle 10 years after he had died, and I thought the new Rem Koolhaas design library was really perfect. It's such an amazing building, and so completely not a part of 1990s era Seattle. And it was really fun to shoot inside. We were moving around really quick. I think we shot the entire building in less than an hour. We had the camera on a tripod that was on wheels, and we were just kind of running and pushing it down the halls and into the elevators. So that was really a lot of fun. It's also at this point in the film where we meet Colleen McNeary, who's this amazing young collage artist from Seattle. Shirley had seen her artwork at the Seattle Art Museum and had come to me and said, I've seen this show of young local artists, and there's this one in particular that I think is really amazing. And look, she's dealing with a lot of the same themes as Kurt did. And so that was nice, I think, because, we have Kurt at this moment in the film. He's sort of bemoaning what the future holds and how kids won't care about music. The ability to show this woman who is creating art and dealing with similar ideas and images, like, these anatomical drawings, that was very nice. But I think she symbolizes one of the key ideas of the film, which is one of the reasons that she is kind of this summing up figure. We see her art right before this quick cutting of the images that takes us back through the 3 cities where Kurt lived. And that idea is that the life and people and the existence of these towns, it goes on. And it goes on without Kurt, by his own choice. And that's something I think is sort of central to what I wanted to say in the film. That here there are these kids at Aberdeen High School. There'll be a whole nother class of kids going there, graduating from there. There will be a band in Olympia who is, playing a show in an alley. And there's going to be a band from Seattle that's about to break in a big way, like Band of Horses did right after we shot this show at Numos in the spring of 2006. And all of these things, will continue to happen in these cities, and cities that will be forever connected to Kurt Cobain. And his presence looms. When you're there, you just can't help. Obviously, we were shooting something about him, but you can't help but feel the connections to him. And everyone tells you, like, oh, my uncle knew him, or my family was, close to his, or, someone I know is living in his house. So his presence looms, but so does his absence. And in many ways, that's what the film is about, both artistically and stylistically and thematically. It's about his presence and his absence.